We make the strings
louder.
What's up, guys? So today I thought I would change up the style of video a little bit and just do a quick little install and kind of overview of something on the drift car. I'm going to be installing this little Moroso. It's an air oil separator, and basically what that does is separate the oil out of the air, basically going back into the intake or whatever. Or basically that's what I'm going to do. For this little while since I've had the single turbo on here, I haven't plumbed the PCV back into the thing from the factory. It basically sucks the crankcase pressure out of the valve covers, and then it sucks it through the turbo, and then there's like a little bit of like residual oil that ends up going through the intercooler. That causes a whole bunch of issues as far as like the oil takes away some of like the octane in your fuel and could cause like knock and stuff like that. And on a setup like this, I just didn't really want that. I feel like I'm already kind of pushing it with the single turbo on the stock ECU. So I didn't want to do that, and so I just had this little random hose laying around, just kind of stuffed right there. At the Harris Hill Raceway when we were drifting in Texas, there's a little bit of blow-by coming out, not like really a lot at all, but it was getting kind of hot. So I was like, you know what, I want to go ahead and actually recirculate that, especially with the power that I'm kind of making with this thing now when I turn up the boost. There's definitely a lot more cylinder pressure, and when there's more cylinder pressure, that means that it pushes a little bit more pressure past the rings, and then so you want to evacuate that excessive crankcase pressure out of the block before. It's just not good. It's like if there's pressure on the top of the piston from it going down, you don't want any pressure on the bottom of it kind of feeding it back. And so that's why I've just kind of had this venting to the atmosphere, and I've had it disconnected over here on the PCV side. And this is basically a one-way valve, so it sucks when it's just idling, and then when you actually get into boost, it closes this so it doesn't pressurize the crankcase at all. But yeah, so when you hook it up to the intake track, it basically creates a suction, and it kind of evacuates and kind of sucks that extra pressure out of the engine. But I don't want any of the oil going through that. So that's what this little Moroso thing is going to do, and I'll show you how it does that. Basically, you hook up a line to the valve cover and then a line to the turbo inlet, and it has like this mesh on the inside. So hopefully you could see that right there. There's basically some mesh kind of on the inside of that. And as it goes through here, that mesh just absorbs all the oil, and then it basically just drips down into this little catch can in the bottom. So this has a little mounting bracket, like a little universal thing goes around it. Pretty nice little piece. I got this off of Summit Racing. It was like $140 some. And then it has this little valve on the bottom that you screw in, and then so once that kind of fills up, it'll fill up with kind of like excess fuel vapor, some condensation, but mostly like some like sludgy looking oil stuff. But yeah, so that'll go right there on the bottom. Then you could put a little cup under there, drain it. It has this little cap so that like once it's actually drained, it won't like the residual oil in there won't keep leaking. So you could see it came with this extra little 1/2-inch SAE line, and this is kind of like a oil vapor safe. So anyhow, it came with this little bracket, and I already kind of placed this in here a little bit, just to kind of get a rough estimate. It came with this little bracket. This is actually for like a 6.1, I don't know, something Hemi, like the 5.7 Hemi, 6.1 Hemi. But I was kind of trying to place it around the engine bay to see what would actually be a good place to do it. And I found this basically a perfect little mount right there on the radiator. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt it there. We're still kind of in rough draft stages, so this isn't finalized yet. And then the plan is to take this line right here directly off of that, come over here, obviously flip this around, and then right here on the intake side, just put a little, basically like a little barb, and plumb that straight up into there, so that the turbo will basically suck the oil out of here, but all the oil will remain in there. So that's kind of the plan so far. I do have this this pipe with this nipple on it, which seems like it'll work pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off, and that line goes on there real good. Basically put that right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off, fire up the old TIG welder, and pull off the intake and get all that welded. Gonna figure out a good place to put a mark on here. I have a bracket that'll actually pull this back a little bit further away, so I might actually switch up to that. But I'm kind of assuming I'll probably go like right in here with it. But I kind of need it to kind of go in there at like a 45-degree angle, but leave me enough actual hose on here, because this isn't a very long piece, and to get that on there and actually get like a hose clamp on it, I'm gonna need at least a little bit. So probably do something like that, but I'm gonna swap this bracket out. So yeah, that'll give me a little bit more room. Be able to kind of go over that way a little bit more and actually have a little bit of the hose out of the way. That's all the way in there. Alright, now I just need to drill a hole. Guess we'll give her the old test fit real quick. See how that's all gonna line up. That's not bad. Alright, so now what I'm going to go ahead and do is basically clean up this whole section really good. So I got me some new paper towels here. I got this little piece of Scotch-Brite, which I need to cut. So yeah, I'm using this little piece of Scotch-Brite to basically scuff up and clean around where I'm going to be welding. Basically, when you're doing aluminum welding, it's going to be super clean, like you're a damn scientist or something. Make sure that's really clean right there. I would take the sensor off here, but I shouldn't be welding on this very long, and it's RTV'd on there because I don't have the gasket. And then this thing's like squeezed all the way down, so hopefully you don't have any issues welding it. But I don't know. Well, aluminum's always fun to do, so we'll see. Get this thing clamped in the vise and go from there. Something like that is how it needs to be. So I need to get the welder all figured out. So now I'm just gonna do a few little test passes. Playing with some settings on some other aluminum. So I got kind of a few ugly practice ones over there. You can see, not the best, but yeah, so now I think it's time to throw a few little tacks on here. Alright, so that's all TIG welded up with the aluminum. Aluminum is always kind of a pain. I got it all cooled off and everything. But it looks decent enough. I mean, for basically sucking a little bit of air, it should be perfectly fine. So let's go over there and put it on. So let's throw this guy on there. In the hole, I got all the shavings and everything cleaned out of it. The hose right here. Looks like that. I should actually be able to get a pretty good hose clamp on that too. That should be about perfect. Right there. It's going to be just a little bitty hose. But you can see once I have the thread tape and everything on here, that'll just go perfect right there. So yeah, I really like that. So I'm going to go ahead and yank this thing off and get some thread tape on it. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the whole oil catch can install. Like I said, you definitely don't want that oil vapor going through your intake system and going into your intake manifold. If you've ever pulled like the intake manifold off, like like an older car or something like that, like a Pontiac or like even like LS engines and stuff, they'll have like a little pool of oil on in the intake manifold, and it's just not the best thing ever. On the newer direct injected vehicles like BMWs and like the Ford EcoBoosts and stuff, they have major issues with basically the crankcase, the PCV system on it, because it just sucks all the oil, and since it's direct injected, the injector is actually in the cylinder head and not spraying on the intake valves, so the intake valves just get super gunked up and are super gross. So if you have an EcoBoost or a BMW, like a 335xi or 335 or something with a turbocharged direct injected engine in it, I would definitely recommend an oil air separator, an air breather system. On my buddy's BMW, he had when he first got it, he ended up having to have the intake valves walnut blasted because his was so bad, had misfires and stuff, and was running kind of weird at idle. And it robs your fuel of octane essentially, because you're throwing oil into the combustion chamber to burn as well, and you're getting oil in your intercooler as well. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. I watched a lot of videos. I watched a couple videos of people in this pretty much exact catch can. Like I said, this was $100 and some. You could get those eBay catch cans that just kind of sit there, but I don't think they have basically that Brillo pad in there, or the steel wool, to kind of let that oil vapor condense and drip down. So I mean, you could try a system like that. You know, I know those things are super cheap, but I would recommend just getting like a nice quality one, something like this. I went ahead and I hooked up my PCV system back up on here because, like I said, this will suck into the intake manifold when it's just idling, which is fine because we're not like in boost or anything like that. And then as soon as it sees a positive pressure, it closes that, and then by then the turbo should be sucking enough to kind of really pull some vacuum on the crankcase. That's the plan, hopefully. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys let me know what you think of this style of video. It was going to be a Saab video, but I'm not quite done with that. I was doing some headlight stuff, but you'll see that in the next video, or one of the next videos. But again, appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you next time.